All right. So thank you for coming. We are here to share insider secrets plus tips and strategies on how to save on and not just for the cost of college. And why should you listen to us? Ken, you want to?
Sure. Good evening. Small crowd tonight. Hopefully some people are just a little late getting here. By way of introduction, my name is Ken Tolchin. I'm a co-founder of Green Education. With a career track that includes public accounting and controllership, insurance and financial services, I spent 30 years helping people with their financial well-being. There's a looming retirement crisis coming in our country, and my primary focus has been to educate clients on the threats to surviving their retirement years and employing strategies to help protect their assets and create a lifetime stream of income. So why college planning? Well, college planning really goes hand in hand with retirement planning, as many people raid their retirement funds to pay for college, and we aim to assist you in preventing that. But the story is more personal for me. 15 years ago, when my son entered college, my wife and I made all the classic mistakes and cost ourselves literally tens of thousands of dollars in scholarship money from a school that's fairly generous with awards. We got nothing, nada, zilch. I'll spare you the details, but it's too painful to rehash. But I didn't know any better back then. That's why this became my passion. That's why I'm here today. That's why we're here to make sure that you understand the system and help put you in a position to use it to your advantage. Barbara?
And my name is Barbara Miller, and I've actually am an expert in admissions and student positioning, and I've helped thousands of families save tens of thousands of dollars on the cost of college and guide their students to their dream fit school. And since March of 2012, I've worked presenting over 300 free educational workshops on how to navigate through the maze of college planning without financial, emotional, and mental stress. Now, while I haven't previously worked in the education arena, I have spent over 35 years in recruiting and human resources. And let me just point out that getting noticed by schools is parallel to getting noticed by a big corporation. Let's face it, you're competing for a spot and they are looking for the best candidate to fit that spot. I provide my expertise in career research and selection, student positioning, test prep, mostly determining which is the best fit for your student, and school selection. And I provide step-by-step guides to creating resumes, recommendations, admissions essays, admissions applications. And George, I thought I saw George on here. Yeah.
He's having connection issues.
Oh, he's having connections issues. Okay, so George is our the third leg of the or piece of the puzzle, and he has his focus is on helping you increase your knowledge to protect and grow your wealth while also helping you reduce your tax liability. And these are important because we have to keep those in mind also while we're looking at solutions for college planning and, of course, retirement planning. So why are you here? You're here because no one is giving you the entire picture, both good and bad, regarding what college is going to cost you and how to put together a plan to pay it. And you want your student choosing the right school for the right reasons at the right price. And that's what we do. Now, the information is general in nature, seeing that everybody's personal financial situation is complex and very different. So due to this, we offer a free initial consultation where we're going to take 60 minutes of our one-on-one time to determine if we can provide you with a significant positive outcome. And during the initial consultation, we're going to discuss your student, where you currently are in the process, what your goals, objectives, and most importantly, what your obstacles are. After all, college is a huge investment and the process is complex with several hidden steps and obstacles along the way. And when we get to the end of our conversation, we'll be able to determine if we can make a significant positive impact for you. Unfortunately, we can't help everyone. So it's understandable that we're very selective with who we choose to work with. But if we work with you, our goal is to help you achieve a great outcome for your student and your finances. This is also why our other goal is to educate the community through our community outreach program. We're trying to do these workshops and educate people as much as humanly possible. So if you enjoy the information and you're part of a company or a group or organization or, band membership or anything where you've got a group and you want us to come out, just bring that to our attention. We'll arrange that for you as well. We are also going to be having future workshops on IRMA and Social Security, long-term care, financial aid changes, and more. So keep an eye out for future emails. Now, we got a lot of information to cover. At the end of the workshop, we are going to have a question and answer session for those that have additional questions. And we're providing you with a document. Give me one moment so I can provide you with that document, so I can add that to the chat box. So this is not going to be in the question and answer box. This is going to be in the chat box. But you're going to see where it says Workshop Notes PDF. You can click on it to open it and download it. And it's where you're going to be able to keep notes. And we're going to make sure to let you know what the most important things to write down are. Okay, so real quickly, our today's agenda is the current college cost landscape, covering the basics, costly mistakes to avoid, the college funding retirement savings dilemma, and tips for reducing costs. So let's start by discussing the current college cost landscape. So as you can see, the current cost for 4 years at an in-state public university is about $84,000 minimum. And the cost for 4 years at an elite private university can reach well over $320,000. This is with the cost of attendance projected to increase about 5% each and every year. And when you take into account that only 43.7% of freshmen will graduate in 4 years, the figures can skyrocket. And those are numbers that you're going to want to write down. And if your student is interested in out-of-state public universities, you can expect the cost to be approximately $45,000 to $60,000 per year. Now, these schools are aware that they're popular and they don't need to offer scholarships or money to entice students to apply or attend. And they do not give need-based aid to out-of-state students. And all of this conversation we're talking about for right now is for one child. So the good news is most people think, and most professional advisors included, that college planning is just saving for college. In fact, good college planning is all about saving on the cost of college. And when it comes to college planning, while we're consistent in the strategies we use, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Your family is going to use a unique combination and blend of strategies. But if you know the ins and outs of the process and better understand it, then you can work within that framework. And you can also turn the process around so that you manage it and you can take advantage of the process as opposed to the process taking advantage of you. So now, what do you need to know in advance? So the first thing you need to know is how your SAI, which is called your Student Aid Index, is calculated. What's being assessed and how much? What planning strategies are available to implement that are both prudent, meaning good for retirement planning too, and at the same time can increase your financial aid eligibility. You want to be able to determine ahead of time what forms are required by the schools, meaning the FAFSA, CSS profile, institutional financial aid applications, verification forms, tax documents, and additional forms. And a really important note here, financial aid applications are going to be based on your student aid index on the prior year. And you would definitely want to write that down. What that means, it means that financial aid applications for 2023, that's right for juniors, are going to be based on your income information from this year, 2021. So this is why we recommend that you start 4 to 5 years prior to your student's base year. And that's the first year that they're applying for financial aid in order to have time to complete the analysis and develop a plan. And you must plan for financial aid before financial aid forms. We recommend, as I said, at least 4 to 5 years before the base year, which is your student's incoming freshman year. Why so early, you might ask? Well, in reality, even this is considered late stage college planning. You should be developing a plan to pay for college as soon as possible after your child is born. The longer we have to plan, the less of a commitment you need to make per year. So when your student finally does start looking at colleges, the conversation's about academics and not economics. Now, the plan is to make sure that we've reached both our objectives and our goals. So our objectives are to have enough funds for college while we're saving for retirement with minimal impact on our monthly cash flow. And if the strategy is appropriate for college and retirement, it's a win-win. Of course, our goals are to have our returns exceed college inflation of 5% per year, where the investment has tax-deferred growth and tax-favored access for college, and is favorable for financial aid, and can be used for college and retirement. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the basics that you need to know. First thing I always like to do is show you this is the simplified version of the current student financial aid delivery system. And you can see how complex and confusing this is. How many of you out there feel that you can navigate this? Yeah, I feel your pain. That's okay. So aid basically comes from 2 different avenues. And unless you're in the military, veterans benefits are not going to apply to you, but all the other areas are available to students. Money from federal grants, college resources, state programs, private sources, and of course, federal loans is your big chunk. So the 2 types of aid, there's only 2 types of aid. The first one is called merit aid. That comes from the admissions department. And you're typically notified at the same time as your student receives the school's decision. And it's based on how your student stands out amongst other students. It's free money. You never have to give it back. The other is called need-based aid. This comes from the financial aid department. It consists of grants, which are free, plus low to 0 interest loans to work study. So whatever fancy names are used, it's either free money, it's a loan, or it's something you got to work off. So as far as merit aid comes, as I said, from the admissions office and the free money, and it's based on how your student stands out among other applicants in the form of scholarships. Schools have 4 different sources: academic scholarships, which is based on GPA transcripts, test scores; talent scholarships based on talent and ability in a specific sport; artistic scholarships, which is talent based in like a portfolio, performance, audition; and achievement scholarships based on anything from your community services, leadership roles, earning an IB or ACE diploma. Schools also have endowment scholarships, which they are basically donated from outside sources, and department scholarships. So merit aid, though it's somewhat predictable, is not guaranteed. As mentioned before, it's based on how your student outshines other applicants. Since we don't know the other applicants' GPAs, test scores, resumes, recommendations, essays, honors, it's impossible to say definitively that your student will receive merit aid. The same is actually true for Bright Futures. That's the reason we're not going to include Bright Futures when determining our out-of-pocket costs, because it's not guaranteed either. Bright Futures, which many of you are depending on, almost had major cuts and changes this past year. One of them being that your student's Bright Future scholarship was going to be reduced by the number of AP, IB, ACE, or dual enrollment credits that your student earned. Of course, we devoted a significant amount of time and effort to prevent this, but you need to be aware that this may not be around when your student attends college. This is voted on every year, and it can end or change at any time. Now, we can, however, determine need-based aid. So let's look at some key terms. What you're going to see before you here is the basic formula for financial aid. We're going to speak in acronyms, or as I like to say, alphabet soup. So here's the big formula. Write this down. COA, that's cost of attendance. It's your retail sticker price, worst case scenario. So each and every year, the schools must supply the Department of Education with their published rate. The cost of attendance covers hard costs and soft costs. Hard costs are those costs that you're going to be billed for typically twice a year by the school, like your tuition and fees, dorm, meal plan, health insurance. And I include health insurance because the school will charge you for that if you don't show that your student is on your health insurance plan. Soft costs are variable costs, such as books, supplies, transportation, miscellaneous. As I said, this is the worst case scenario. We do not decide on what school will be affordable based on the cost of attendance. And relax, I'm going to show you how to calculate what your cost will be. That's the number that you need to know. So that number is your student aid index, which you will hear as the term SAI. For those following the news, it was formerly called your expected family contribution, or EFC. It's going to be called your student aid index, or SAI, moving forward. So you want to write that down. So we have COA minus SAI. Takes into account parents' income and assets and student income and assets. Rolls them into a proprietary formula similar to your FICO score for credit, and then calculates a number that they believe is the amount of money that you as a family can afford to invest annually in education for that student. So the formula is you're going to subtract that from the cost of attendance, and then the difference between the cost of attendance and your student aid index is your financial need. So first step is calculating your student aid index. So on December 21st, Congress passed the FAFSA Simplification Act, which did away with the expected family contribution, or EFC, and is replacing it with the student aid index, or SAI. Colleges are going to use the SAI to determine your eligibility for financial need. And the SAI is the minimum you're going to be expected to pay or contribute towards the cost of college. Here's an important fact. They do not take into account any debt, such as your bills. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. Such as your bills or car payments or credit card debt or taxes you may owe. None of that. They also no longer consider if you have more than one student in college. So here's some of the significant changes to the financial aid formula. So your first allowance is your parent income protection allowance. A portion of your allowance is going to, a portion of your income, I'm sorry, is actually taken out of the formula, but it is going to increase, but it no longer factors in additional students in college. Your assets are going to take a double hit. First of all, the asset protection allowance will decrease, meaning that more of your assets are going to be assessed in the student aid index. And the asset assessment will increase from 5.6% to more than double at 12%. The student income protection allowance is going to increase from 6420 to 9410, at least a little bit of good news. But keep in mind that any money that your student earns over the 9410 will be assessed at 50%. It's whether the student is dependent or independent. This is partially as a result of some wealthy families emancipating their students so that they would qualify for financial aid. And the student assessment, asset assessment is at 20%. So as you can see, you may be penalized for saving. And the Department of Education assumes that any assets that you have outside your retirement plans must be for expenditures such as college. 12% of your assets are going to count towards your student aid index. So investments include real estate, but not the home in which you live, rental property, trust funds, UTMA and UGMA accounts, money market funds, mutual funds, certificates of deposit, stocks, bonds, other securities, etc. Investments also include qualified educational benefit programs like covered health savings accounts, 529 plans, and Florida prepaid plans. Yes, this includes your 529 plans, where a 529 plan, for those that don't know, it's a tax-free college savings plan where any of the growth in the plan is completely tax-free, which I'm sure everyone thinks that sounds good. So you get the federal government says, I've got this really good plan for you. Save money for college like a good parent. You can have that money tax-free on the gain and everybody wins. Parents go, yay, we love that. But that is the IRS's rules. The school's rules, let's look at the Department of Education. So now you're going to go stand in line to apply for financial aid. And what does the Department of Education say about your 529 plan? Well, 12% of the 529 plan will count towards your expected contribution, costing you $12,000 in this example, $50,000 for two students. It's going to cost you $12,000 a year and lost financial aid. So this is one of those situations where understanding how they come about their formula and calculating how it affects your SAI, knowing this early, is going to benefit you. I'm actually going to take it a step further. Many of the private schools are going to move that asset to, because it's their money, their rules, out of the parent's name and put it in the child's name. So why do they do that? Well, who's the 529 plan for? The student is the beneficiary of this asset, right? So the college is going to come back and say, no, 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 I don't care what the Department of Education says. This is an asset for the student to go to college. Formula says student assets are calculated at 20%. Now, before you walk out of here tonight and go to the bank tomorrow and rip out all your money in your 529 plans, remember that it's circumstantial. It's based on the family's circumstances. But this is just one of the areas where we have strategies and solutions to take care of this. So let's talk about Florida prepaid for a minute. How many of you have Florida prepaid? I'll bet a few of you do. So this may be one of the best returns on investment you have. You paid for housing too, then you're really ahead. But keep in mind, Florida prepaid only covers part of the bill. And we're going to be looking at your costs for in-state public universities. Still the cost of housing, meal plans, books, supplies, miscellaneous costs, which is about 65 to 75% of the bill. And if you're using it for a private school, and you can, because keep in mind, though your Florida prepaid is an investment, and as an investment, it's going to be assessed at 12%, but it is an investment, not a state plan. So you can use that value at any school, public or private, in-state or out-of-state. So now we've discussed a little bit of what does count towards your expected contribution. You should know that there are assets that are not counted towards your expected contribution. And you want to familiarize yourself with strategies that can effectively lower your student aid index. This requires a deep dive into your finances, monthly cash flow and budget, tax capacity, your lifestyle, and your future plans. After analysis, you have to review which strategies are applicable to your specific circumstances, such as possibly reallocating the funds to an asset that's not assessed by the Department of Education, retirement accounts, permanent life insurance, annuities, just to name a few. Okay, now that you've calculated your student aid index, completed a full analysis of your finances, applied appropriate strategies, now you still need to be able to pay your portion. So now it's time to develop a plan to pay your out-of-pocket costs. So let's talk about the portion that you have to pay. As we're going to show, this is a juggling act. So how you're expected to pay for college, there's 5 ways to pay for college. You can pay with earnings or income. This means that you need to examine your budget in advance. You can take it out of cash, investments, your piggy bank. Bad part about this is the disbursement will show up in your tax return and artificially raise your adjusted gross income for that year, which is going to raise your student aid index. If you do this before your base year, and put it in an account that's out of the financial aid formula, it's a win-win. You can use your home equity to pay for college. And just so you know, many top universities are going to add your equity back into your financial aid formula when determining your contribution anyways. You can take money from retirement. Now, we list this as a way to pay because there's always someone that says, hey, my financial aid advisor told me that I can take a loan against my retirement or get a disbursement without any penalties. Well, that is correct. However, you have to keep in mind that you're depleting your retirement account. And as I've heard many times, you can borrow for college, but you can't borrow for retirement. And of course, loans. Speaking of borrowing, and everyone says, oh, my student will get loans. Well, your student is eligible for student loans, but it's only $5,500 freshman year, $6,500 sophomore year, and $7,500 junior senior year. Not even close to covering the cost of attendance. So your student should be starting in their freshman year to start positioning themselves to stand out with schools. Once your students position themselves to stand out, it's important that they pick the right school for the right reasons, meaning that the school is an academic fit, has their major, and your student can get in. It's a social fit. Student's going to thrive on campus, and it's at the right price, meaning that you are able, ready, and willing to pay what you'll be expected to pay. And I put them in this order for a reason. The first thing to consider is your ability to pay. Secondly, are the funds to be used for college going to be there when you need them? Meaning, do they have guaranteed growth and will they be liquid? And third, well, just because you're willing to pay, you're able to pay $20,000 to $80,000 a year, it doesn't mean that you're willing to pay it. So let's look at some of the costly mistakes to avoid. So first is not knowing your student aid index. So if you don't know how financial need is determined, and if you don't know the difference between included income and assets and non-reportable income and assets, for the purpose of filing financial aid forms, you should know, because where you keep your money matters. You wouldn't buy a house without knowing how much it will cost you. So why would you do that with a college that could cost just as much? Secondly, is school choices. The student applies to fewer than 6 schools. The odds of a good aid package are much less than if they apply to 10. The colleges are going to know that it's only competing with a few schools and that your choices are restricted, so the school has a better hand. The opposite is true too. If your student applies to over 15 schools, the schools perceive that a smaller chance of your student selecting their school to attend should they accept your student. So the school may hesitate in offering a spot based on the perceived probability that your student will not attend. Also, it's imperative that you pick schools where your child lies in the top 20% of the incoming freshman class. Third mistake, I got a guy. Unfortunately, CPAs and tax preparers, they are experts in tax planning and preparation, but not financial aid planning. For example, CPA or tax preparer might suggest that you put some or all of your assets in your child's name to save money on taxes. So first, let me say, this is fantastic advice for reducing taxes, but it will usually kill most or all of your chances of getting financial aid because it's going to be assessed at 20%. So if you're going to go see somebody, make sure that they are well experts in college planning and funding, not just college, not the college's financial aid department or just a financial advisor. So how can I tell, Barbara? Well, any product or investment that a college funding professional will recommend will have guaranteed growth, meaning it is not affected by the ups and, more importantly, the downs of the stock market. Liquidity, meaning that there's not going to be penalties for withdrawing funds when needed, and not counted towards your expected contribution. Your advisor should be able to give you an educated estimate of what that investment will be worth at the time that you need it, meaning when your student's ready to attend college. And mistake number 4, not applying at all. Actually, this should be the number 1 mistake. Lots of parents, for lots of reasons, don't bother to apply. But the 2 biggest are because you think that you make too much money, or that your student is a straight A or talented or minority student, so you'll get scholarships. It's a big mistake because there are many colleges that won't offer merit money unless you file the forms. They will use the merit aid as an incentive to attract a top student to their school that did complete financial aid for. By applying for financial aid, you are in essence telling the school that the final cost is a factor in your decision. If you're not completing the financial aid forms because you think you made too much money, we cannot appeal it to see if you can get more money or any money. And if some unfortunate event takes place, spoiler alert, COVID, the college won't have your information to be in a position to reconsider helping you. And we just talked about one of the reasons families do not apply for financial aid is that you believe that your income is too high. What if that's actually the case? You make too much money. Well, there's a couple of things that you need to know about that. You still need to have a plan on how you're going to pay for college. And with some inventive strategies and planning, you can make your money work for you to provide you with funds for college. So this is going to require some cash flow and financial analysis. Some of the areas where you can take advantage of are savings, cash flow, income and asset planning, several strategies that apply for business owners. We could probably talk for 2 hours just on that. Tax credits and tax planning, loans. As long as it's legal, moral, and ethical, and it fits into your family's long-term strategies, it might make some sense to look at those options as well. You know, just because you make decent money doesn't mean you're out of the getting help for college. We just may be looking at this from strategically a different direction. And just so you know, the cumulative benefit of implementing a variety of strategies can often yield a greater real savings to your family on total out-of-pocket college costs than can financial aid. And these strategies are more predictable ahead of time and under your control, as opposed to being controlled by the school with respect to financial aid. So mistake number 4, not pricing out the schools. Okay, imagine your family $100,000 in total income plus $100,000 in assets, Florida prepaid. Although your initial student aid index is about 25,000, you employ some strategies and lower your student aid index to 15,000. Okay, so now we've established that you have a need above $15,000. So here's a public university that's 23,486. So you have a financial need. Doesn't mean you're getting anything. Schools are not required to cover your need. So there are 3 questions to which you need to know the answers. First question, what is the percentage of need that the school offers? Ideally, you're looking for a school that's offering 100% of need or close to that. But as you can see in this example, that although we have a financial need, the school does not meet all your need. So you're left with what's called unmet need or a gap. And who pays that? Well, you do. And the aid does not have to be all gift aid. Many schools factor in student loans and even Parent Plus loans into their financial aid award. So the second question you need to ask is, what is the breakdown between gift and self-help? Well, self-help aid, as I mentioned, includes work, study, and loans, whether they're Perkins loans, student loans, Parent Plus loans. So for example, in this one, school gives 60% gift, 40% self-help. Well, if you find a school that does 75% gift and 25% self-help, you could end up paying significantly less at the second one compared to the first. Okay, so your real cost or out-of-pocket cost here is the sum of your student aid index, that's the 15,000, your unmet need, and of course, any self-help. So that's going to be a total of 20,830 out, 838. And keep in mind, I know for these examples, we are not including any possible state merit aid, such as Bright Futures or any institutional merit aid. We are only looking at need-based aid. So now let's look at a private college, and obviously its cost of attendance is almost triple that of the public example. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to extract the student aid index and we come up with a financial need, which naturally, due to the difference in the cost from the public university, is much higher. But look what happens when you see the aid package. The entire financial need is met. So there is zero gap, no gap to add to your cost of your SAI of $15,000. Furthermore, the private school gives 97% gift aid and only 3% self-help. So as it turns out, because of the big difference in the ability of the private school to meet your financial need, the school that appeared to be out of reach, in fact, is less out of pocket. So you have to price the schools. Oh, I said 3 questions, remember? So the third question you have to ask is, what's the average length of time to graduate for the school? Our goal, of course, is we want your student graduated, successful, and supporting themselves in 4 years. Well, according to the Department of Education, completing the program on time, if you completing the program in 150% of the published time is completing it on time. So in 4 years, 150%, that's 6 years. The actual average public school graduation rate is 5.8 years. The average private school graduation rate is 4.2 years. That means a private school that may be a little bit more expensive upfront per year could still end up being the cheaper option in the long run, because your student's going to go there for less years. There's several variables to why your student may take more than 4 years to graduate. Impacted classes they can't get to, changing their majors is going to add an extra year or two, not being prepared, taking enough APA, ACE dual enrollment courses, that could add a year or two, not taking enough credits per semester while they're in college. Okay. So now let's actually look at the college funding retirement savings dilemma. So now we've actually ready to put together a plan to pay for college, something else you need to consider. We know that you love your children, you want them to be successful, you're willing to sacrifice for them financially. And just so you know, many parents do, even to the point of jeopardizing their retirement age. So at this time, you're probably juggling 2 financial balls: paying for your house and saving for retirement. And we're going to mess things up by throwing in a third ball of saving and paying for college. Now, are you going to be forced to choose what you're going to do and end up like these? Are you going to be able to accomplish all 3, or be forced to choose and end up like these parents? So you need to work on a plan to be able to afford all of this without sacrificing any of them. We're here to make sure that you don't put your retirement savings at risk. You know, we want to avoid that at all costs. So take a little minute right now. So right now we're going to jot down cost of 4 years of college for each student. Okay. Now add your mortgage. Okay. Now add how much you need to retire to have enough money to last your entire retirement. Wait. We've been focusing on the cost of undergraduate education for only 1 child. Remember, there's other things to consider. Is your student interested in pursuing a master's degree or an MBA or JD or MD? That's another 2 to 4 years with little to no need-based assistance other than loans. So add that. Do you have more than 1 student? While you're planning, you need to factor in funds for their college too. Go ahead and add that. And once upon a time, we were taught to have enough savings to cover 3 months of salary in case of an emergency, such as losing your job or a pandemic. And of course, you must make sure that you're covered for short-term care and long-term care. And this is all while still planning for retirement. And here's the thing, life expectancy has increased dramatically 1% each year. So you need to plan to have enough income to support yourself. You know, you want to make sure that you have enough retirement funds to support you until you're at least the age of 80, if not more. You know, we want to make sure that you have the security of being prepared for all of this. And this is exactly our expertise. We make sure that you can pay for everything when we put together a plan. Okay, now that we have planned out for the worst case scenario, now let's talk about reducing the costs. Okay, first thing, be a rock star. So when the student is at the top of the applicant pool, the odds of getting a discount go up appreciably. Now, we're in no way dismissing your B student. There are literally thousands of schools where your B student is a top student and will be eligible for merit aid. Again, right school, right reasons. Expanding your universe, you'll find a lot more options by looking at colleges beyond your typical home radius that you and your student may impose on yourselves. More importantly, you want to look for schools that have a career service center with a high percentage of students either gainfully employed in their chosen career within 90 days or graduating or attending a top grad school, business school, law school, med school. Let's face it, a degree from a prestigious school is not worth the paper it's printed on if your student can't get a job. Let's look at prestigious schools, what some people consider a prestigious school, and that's the US News and World Rankings. So anyone here know what the criteria is for that makes up the US News Rankings? No? Okay. So they rank colleges based on graduation and retention rates, undergrad academic reputation, which is derived from a peer assessment survey. So yes, they ask other colleges to rank colleges. Also, faculty resources, meaning how much notoriety does the faculty member have? Financial resources, meaning how much do they get in endowment contributions? And average alumni giving rate. So what's missing? How about professor performance, relevance of curriculum to the degree, career services, and return on investments? Don't you want some sort of assurance that after you spend upwards to $320,000 on an undergraduate education, that your student will be gainfully employed in his or her field of study? Okay, also demonstrated interest. Demonstrating interest is an important factor in the admissions decision of many colleges, such as American University or Boston University. Keep in mind that some schools are getting over 50,000 applications. Florida State University in our backyard received over 60,000 applications for approximately 7,500 spots. So it's imperative that your students take steps to get noticed. Most schools track all communications with your student. So when if they're keeping in contact with the school and when the application comes in, admissions already knows your student's serious. And creating leverage. This term's relative to every college and every student regarding applying to schools in direct competition with each other. And applying to competing schools increases the chances of a discount and getting a better one if need be. So here's our next steps. So what do parents really want? Ask yourself, what's important to your family? We found parents look at this process with concern. Sure, you want your children to be independent, happy, and successful. Many are under the assumption that if a child doesn't get into what they think is their right college, they won't be able to succeed. So finding a college can take on special meaning. And of course, what parent doesn't want their child to get lots of scholarships? You might have said to your child, you do the work and we'll figure out a way to pay for it. And then they had the audacity to listen to you and get accepted to top schools. So now reality is starting to sink in and you may be rethinking that promise. Well, you'd like to keep that promise without sacrificing your retirement. We feel the same way. You don't want to always say it, but what you really want is help. So you might ask, hey, Barb, couldn't we just do this ourselves? Absolutely. Just so long as you're willing to become an expert in the admissions process and its impact on financial aid, as well as the thousands of pages of rules and regulations required to take full advantage of financial aid and the whole process. Each family is unique, and it takes an experienced financial aid specialist to know how to advise you. And financial aid specialists will help you determine how much the schools will expect you to pay, how to lower that cost, how to plan to pay your portion. You should have a plan in place on how to pay in time, by the time your student is a freshman. And planning is really important. Hope is not a plan, though. It does not pay the bills. Planning and preparation pays the bills. And when hope fails, debt happens. So no matter what you do, you need to answer the following questions. So what are you going to be expected to pay for college, your student aid index? How can you lower your out-of-pocket costs? What plan do you have to pay those out-of-pocket costs? And what are going to be the right schools for my student based on the right reasons at the right price? So if you want help with all that, here's the next step. Schedule your initial consultation while it's free. We would like to schedule it. You can just put in chat. Let's go over a few of the rules, though. If you are married, we respectfully insist that both parents must attend the meeting. Please do not ask our staff to make an exception because they will tell you no. Now, our consultations are typically $297, but if you schedule your appointment by Monday, October 25th, we will waive the consultation fee and it is complimentary. You can schedule it for the next few weeks, but you need to call us and have your appointment on the calendar by Monday. That allots you almost a week to schedule your meeting and a little over 4 weeks to meet with us. And let me tell you, if it's important to you, and I imagine it is if you're here on a Tuesday night, our staff will make it important to us, and our staff will do everything possible to accommodate you. And you can reach us, I'm so sorry, you can reach us at our office number between 10 and 7. That's 833-473-3631. You can book it on the website by clicking book online, but that will have the $297 price. So it's best to either call us or contact us at info@green-ed.org. Okay, it is our genuine pleasure to share this time with you. I hope you got a lot of information out of it. You're probably thinking of a few friends that you want to tell about this information you got, and that is great. Also tell them that our next workshop is tomorrow, Wednesday, October 20th at 5:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. We will send out an email to you so that you can pass that on. And I'm going to finish with a rhetorical question. Which do you choose, to be an informed or an uninformed buyer? So thank you so much for attending, and I hope you have a great night.